In this video I'm going to show you how to attach the sleeves to the scrubs top. We have a sleeve piece here. What you'll find on the pattern pieces that I'm using are that there aren't any notches to denote which is the front and which is the back of the sleeve, or where to attach them to the actual garment. So what I'm going to do, or what I've done here, is I've got a pin in there which shows me that that's the back of the sleeve. It also shows me which is the right side of the fabric. And then I'm going to fold the fabric in half and just put a little pin in there just to show that's the top of the sleeve, or the sleeve head. And then I have my tunic, which is sewn together at the shoulder seams with a French seam here. That's the front and that's the back. And then I'm going to sew my sleeves on with a French seam, so I'm starting off with wrong sides of fabric together. So pop your sleeve head, that top pin, in there. That is where my shoulder seam is, matching the edges of your fabric up together. And then come along to the side seams. That's my side seam and that's my side seam there, and place those two together. And what you're going to aim to do is to have all the edges together as you go up and around the sleeve. So starting from here, I can now take this pin out because I don't need that one there anymore. I can start pinning that all the way around. I must admit, sleeves are one of the hardest things to actually demonstrate because you can't see much of what's going on with the curves. So where you've got two different curves there, you're trying to put those together, don't just pin that together like that and leave the seam allowances different. Pull that down so that it matches the other seam allowance, like so. And if you're sewing this right sides together, then you turn it back afterwards and finish your edges off on the overlocker or just with a zigzag stitch. So that's the back piece pinned. Now you do the same with the front piece. So come down to your side seams, put those together. You're always trying to keep these edges together as you go. If you're doing this with sleeves that where your sleeve here is bigger than this piece, then what you would do is ease this in around the sleeve head bit. But we're not doing anything fancy for the scrubs. They're only uniforms, so we can, this is quite a simple way of putting a sleeve in, so they'll be fine. You'll be fine doing it. So there we go. So again, once I get to there, that wants to naturally go like that at the top, where those seams don't meet each other. So you have to force that seam down to meet that one and pop a pin in along there. And whenever you put sleeves in, I've noticed this when I've been teaching people, don't put your pins in there and don't put your pins in down here. Try to put your pins in where you're going to be sewing. So we've got a 1 centimetre seam allowance on this, so I'm keeping my pins in approximately 1 centimetre from the edge. Right, and then we'll sew. So, like I said, 1 centimetre seam allowance. Might look a bit odd with my machine because I've got quite a wide foot. So a 9mm width foot. I know that it's not much wider seam allowance than the foot is. But I've got my 1 centimetre mark here where I can match my fabric up to. Don't start sewing right at the end because it will chew the fabric up, so just come in a little bit and start sewing from a little bit further in. Do a back stitch, take your pins out as you go. As you're sewing, don't look at the needle, look here. So we're always trying to match up our edge of the fabric with that 1 centimetre seam allowance. And as you're going along, if you run your finger across there, you can tell if it's going to pleat underneath, because the bits that go wrong when you're doing this are the bits underneath, and sometimes it pleats underneath. And the other thing you can do is just keep opening that up, pulling that bit back, and just making sure that's flat underneath. But if you run your finger along there, you can usually tell if it's going to pleat. Keep stopping every now and again and making sure that's flat underneath, because you're going to be going round curves here. So it's that curve you need to keep on that 1 centimetre seam allowance. Take your pins out as you go. And it's not a race, so don't speed along, because that's when you make mistakes. Right, this is where you've got the biggest curve is usually where it starts pleating underneath. So just be careful. Just get your fingers underneath there, and you'll be able to tell if it's going to pleat underneath, because you don't want any folds of fabric which shouldn't be there. It should be nice and flat when you're finished. And again. Take that one out. And just keep going around and around. I'm sure the nurses won't mind if there are a few pleats in there though. They're not going to notice something like that. They'll just be grateful for nice new scrubs if they're running out of them. There we go. Nearly at the end. Take that curve and then do a back stitch at the end. There we go. And now we'll press that one. So don't forget we're doing French seams here, so I've got my wrong sides of my fabric together. If you've got one of these things, a tailor's ham, this is where they're fabulous, because you can put your fabric over the top of there and press that. So if you've done, you're not doing a French seam and you've done these right sides together, you can now finish off that edge and that's your sleeve done. If you're doing a French seam, you then press it open like this, same as you would if you've done an open seam. Like that, all the way around. There we go. And then for a French seam, turn that back so that before you do that actually, you cut that back, that seam, so that it's nice and neat. So cut it back by about half, like that. And then press that so that your seam is right on the edge, and then sew that again like that, and that will give you an enclosed seam all the way round. If you look at my video for how to do the French seams, that will show you how to do that, and all your raw edges will then be enclosed within that seam, and that's how to put a sleeve in.